was another McDonald's, another hot coffee spill.
Oh, another one. Well, this is going to get people up in arms already, I can tell.
I know. Well, it's so strange, too, because, I mean, there was so much drama about with the Stella Liebig case, and then it seems like it's been a really long time. And now, there's the nuggets, there's the French fries, and now we've got another hot coffee. This one, though, it was in San Francisco. And it's an 85-year-old woman, and she was given the hot coffee, but the issue was that the employee did not get the lid on, and
God.
so the lid came off and it spilled all over her.
Prioritizing profits.
Dangerous drug and product cases.
Welcome back. Another episode, Prioritizing Profits, Dangerous Drug and Product Cases. Another week, another show. How are you feeling today? How was this last weekend?
Feeling good. It was a busy weekend. Oftentimes we just kind of kick back at the ranch and don't do too much, but this weekend we came into town for a big Diamond Gala for the Big Brother Big Sisters organization.
Diamond Gala. That sounds very bougie.
Well, so Diamond Gala is like Diamond Anniversary, so that means 60. So
is it a gala? Like a Diamond Gala?
Yeah,
like the Met Gala?
Yeah.
Okay. Gala. Okay.
I think you could. I think it's like potato.
I think it's gala. The Met Gala. That's a pretty big event there.
All right. Well, it was a Diamond Gala.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, which basically means 60 years. So the organization has been in existence for 60 years, which makes me almost as old as it.
Wow. Well, and
what created in the same year apparently.
What organization was this?
Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Big Brothers Big Sisters. What do they do?
So what they do is they pair adults with children who might need some additional guidance. And I remember back when I first moved to Phoenix, I was interested in getting involved, and so they have like bigs and littles. It actually kind of reminds me of your fraternity stuff, right? So then there's like the big brother, big sister, and so it's just an adult who maybe can guide the child. And a lot of I think back in the day there were a lot of families where there were not fathers in the homes, and so the boys would get like a big brother who would kind of take that parental role and take them out to do traditionally fatherly things, like I don't know what fatherly things are: baseball games, fishing, camping,
building stuff,
shooting guns, dangerous shit. I think.
Fun stuff.
Yeah. So, and then they have big sisters also. And so it's apparently real. I mean, I have not been that familiar with it over the years, but we were invited by a friend of ours, Scott Lehman, who's a big donor to that organization.
He's a hot shot. He's down here in Tucson. He
is definitely, and definitely a hot shot with Big Brothers Big Sisters. In fact, his name will be on their building.
Crazy.
So so we were invited to attend with him. And there were a lot of, so there were the bigs and the littles got up and they talked about their relationships. And some of these kids, it just sounds like it made, a world of difference. Some adults who had gone through the program. So really, really great organization. So, of course, we donated.
Good. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a great organization. I could imagine, growing up, I can't really imagine from obviously the female perspective, but for as a male, I can imagine it being really difficult growing up without a fatherly figure in the household and being able to have an organization that kind of pairs you up with just a role model almost.
Exactly. Yeah.
And someone to hang out with and kind of show you the ropes. I think it would be really beneficial and good for the community overall.
Yeah, it was great. Well, and then, of course, they had a silent auction, and I was bidding on an item for you.
Oh.
Which I did not win.
Damn it.
And I'm not even sure that you would have loved it that much, but it was kind of funny. I'd never seen anything like it. It was In-N-Out merch, but it was some pretty good stuff. Well, first of all, it was like a gift card for, I don't even know how much it was, but a fair number of meals.
Yeah, big. That would have gotten value right there.
Yeah, that would have totally gotten value. And then there was like a gym bag. There's all these just In-N-Out things. And I thought, all right, that might be a good one. I'll get that and put that under the tree for you. But the bidding got crazy, and I don't know when. It was like up at $200. And I was like, I don't know that he's going to like it that much.
That would have been killer. I'm a big In-N-Out fan, as you know.
That.
On the way down as well as back to Phoenix, I always stop at In-N-Out, grab a burger or two. It's just quick. It's easy. The customer service is fantastic, and just high-quality fast food. And almost, you almost forget that it's fast food because it's so fresh and good.
Okay, yeah, commercial for In-N-Out.
Yeah, I mean,
They
In-N-Out,
should just give us free merch for
honestly.
talking about them as often as we do.
In-N-Out and QT, those are my go-to best places to stop if you're on a road trip for sure. But that sounds like a great event, beneficial for the Tucson community. Scott Lehman, like you said, he's a hot shot in the community, hot shot for that organization. Having his name on a building, that's always something I wanted to have. I mean, that's just sick. I know it costs a lot of money and you got to donate quite a bit, but I mean, I think it would be so cool to drive around town and be like, oh, hey, there's the showered building. Well, I guess we kind of already have. Now that I think about it.
Well, the funny thing is the last two offices that we had, the one back, the one on Campbell, they had like no limitations on how big your sign could be on the building. And so it was huge. Right?
Yeah.
I remember that one. It was humongous. And so it kind of looked like the showered building. And then even the last one, it was a pretty decent size. And the way that it was placed, like right in the center, it kind of looked like the shower law building. I mean, I didn't own it, but we rented a decent amount of space in there over the years.
That's shocking. There's no limitations because there were several other businesses in that building, and you'd think one of them would be like, hey, like, can I get an extra few feet here or there? Kind of need.
Well, they did actually. After we came up with this humongous sign, there was a physical therapy that was right next. Right, and so all of a sudden their sign got bigger. I guess they were, there usually are limitations on the building, and it has to be very classy and whatever the parameters are. But for some reason, that one on Campbell, they were just like, whatever you want, put it up as big as you want. And so we're like, okay,
Hey, cash it in.
that was pretty huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that sounds like a good weekend, and it was a silent auction as well as was it like because when I think of a gala, I think of like dancing, dinner.
Yeah, all of that. They had the dinner, the dancing, fancy dresses, and then of course they do the thing where you have to with these little light up wands, which Peter ended up sticking in his nose.
Classic.
I have a picture of that. We'll have
Good old Pete.
Yeah. You can dress them up, but you can't really take them out at your own risk. And so everybody, if you contribute 5,000, 1,000, 250, the whole 9 yards. So they raised, actually, I think, I don't remember the number, but it was a really good sum of money that they raised.
That's good.
So,
that's awesome. And 60 years, I mean, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of lives, I'm sure, that they've affected and improved, as well as I'm sure it's good for the big brothers and big sisters too. I mean, I think having it adds a little bit more responsibility, and I think on a day-to-day basis, you got to think, oh, well, I'm a role model for someone, so I got to kind of step it up here and there.
Well, and especially if somebody doesn't have children of their own, it's kind of nice to be able to have children on, once a week as opposed to 24/7, which could be a lot. Yeah, but it was definitely a good event. It was interesting, too, because we started out at the ranch, and we had to go to the dump in the morning. And so it's like, wow, the morning at the dump and the evening all glammed up.
Glammed up and ready to roll.
At a gala.
Yeah. Well, sounds like a fantastic weekend.
Yeah. Well, tell me about yours. What's been happening up north?
Not much. Honestly, the weekends kind of blend in a little bit. I always... I don't know. I feel like the weekend, I'm in the weekend and I'm like, this feels great. I love this, good vibes. This is a good time. And then the weekend ends and then I kind of forget what we did. We tried a new brunch spot at Fashion Square called Moxie. Christina had driven past it a few times and said it looked fantastic. We went in there and it was fantastic.
Oh.
It looked great. The atmosphere was fantastic. We sat outside, which thank God it was not terribly uncomfortably hot.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah.
Finally.
Had a few drinks. We usually like to do mimosas on Saturday. This place didn't have bottomless, unfortunately, so we didn't really get to cash in on big value, but we did get a bottle, shared that, and then just kind of hung out for the rest of the day. Just slept in, just classic weekend vibes. But looking forward to the week. This week's been going pretty well, and excited for the show.
All right. Yes, we're always excited for the show.
Always. It's a highlight of the week. Let's hop into it. Are there any updates on cases?
No significant updates on any of the pending cases. I mean, I guess the only thing that I will say is, of course, this is kind of like beating a dead horse at this point, which is a terrible saying, and we would never beat any horse, dead or alive. But, the hernia mesh trial is coming up next month, so that's kind of the big deal. I think everybody's kind of anxious about that because, of course, the more trials that happen, the more likely we are to get to that settlement. And then once the settlement happens, basically the opportunity to get involved in the global settlement shuts down. So always just a reminder.
Well, and it's interesting too that, I mean, we've had updates on cases every show so far, and we're well into the 20s, I think, at this point, which is kind of surprising because for cases like this that take years and years to play out, you wouldn't expect there to be weekly updates on these cases, especially as clients. Like, you don't hear any of
good
this.
Lord, no.
And it'd be, and rightfully so, right? I mean, you don't want to be spamming them, you don't want to be overwhelming it, and it really doesn't affect them in the moment. It's just at the end of the line, then, they get to hear kind of the accumulation of all of these things. But yeah, with the hernia mesh, I mean, that's something that it feels like it's building up to. And then once those cases start to really kick off, then everything's going to get crazy and there's going to be a lot of updates.
Yeah. And I mean, in this case, I mean, again, it's a good one. We're very optimistic about it. And if that comes out with, a really high verdict, I think that's going to really move things along. So, yeah, I mean, it could happen anytime, but I think we are getting ready to see that one close out.
So since we don't have any updates on cases, I guess we can go right into current cases that we're handling.
Yeah, so what I thought I would talk about, there were a couple of cases in the news that involved premises liability, or basically lawsuits against property owners for injuries that happen on their premises.
Yeah.
And people usually refer to them as slip and falls or trip and fall cases. So I thought what we would do is talk about, there's a lot of misinformation about those and misunderstanding about what is and isn't a case. So I thought that was an interesting topic. And there's been a couple big cases in the news involving weird ones. Well, actually, one was rather traditional. One involves a traditional slip and fall on a property. And this one happened at an IHOP.
Oh.
So, yeah.
High risk there.
Well, actually, I was thinking is when I saw IHOP, I thought, oh my gosh, my experience with IHOP is one of two. I mean, it's not something that I would just normally go to. Either back in my wild partying days, it was the middle of the night.
Yeah.
After the bar, you go and you eat pancakes.
Fantastic.
Hoping that you're not going to be hungover the next morning. Somehow that's going to help. And then plus that, whatever your diet's out the window. I mean, you eat the bacon, the pancakes, extra
You're
syrup.
starving at that point. It's a fantastic way to end the night, and you get something in your stomach. So, like you said, you can avoid a hangover if possible.
Yeah, or in theory, that was the plan. So either that, or then when you were young, it was one of those restaurants that is very kid friendly, and there are always things that you would eat. So really, that's the only times I've ever been to IHOP. I mean, I can't think of just as an adult, hey, let's meet for lunch at IHOP.
In Tucson, which it's gotten a lot better recently, but especially back when I was in high school, I mean, Tucson just closes at 10 o'clock. Like, if you want to get any semi-decent food that's not like Filiberto's, which I am adamantly against, I think it's disgusting and just super greasy. But I mean, I'm a full-blood Mexican over here, okay?
You're a half-blood.
I'm a half-blood Mexican over here, all right? I'm not a big fan of those kind of late-night Mexican spots. So if you're actually looking for anything where, you don't even have to sit down, but just good food, there's not many places in Tucson that are open late. But IHOP is one that is, I think there's a few 24-hour ones, but those would be up to like
I think
one.
they're all 24 hours.
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah. So that would be one in high school that we would go to all the time. There's one right down the road. And like you said, I mean, you go there and there's always something you can eat. You don't even got to be a kid. If you're just a hungry adult, you can find something: pancakes, eggs and bacon, breakfast burrito, French toast. They got it all. So I'm a big fan. I think the quality has definitely gone down recently over the years, but still a big fan of them.
All right. Well, I think we just did a commercial now for IHOP as well.
Wow.
And actually, they might need the help because they ended up with a verdict of $8 million against them for a slip and fall that happened in Florida. And a woman was leaving, and she was stepping down on the step and twisted her ankle, fell, and it was like a horrendous, I mean, people break their ankles, but this was like a really horrendous fracture, apparently the worst kind of fracture that you can have. And I probably can't pronounce it, but it looks like trimalleolar.
Oh, yeah. No, I've heard
You've heard of this? No,
No,
you
of
have
course
not. I'm like, you're so full of shit. There's just absolutely no. Anyway, but it involved breaking all three of the ankle bones, distal fibula, medial and posterior malleolus.
Yeah.
Anyway, horrible injury, and she was in a wheelchair for a while. She can't climb stairs. She has ongoing, and she's like, I think 41 or something. She's not an older woman, and she has to use a cane basically
Jeez.
forever. I mean, it's just never going to completely heal up.
Yeah.
So she filed a lawsuit, went to jury trial, a little bit over $8 million verdict. And the issue there was that the step was 6 inches deep, and building codes require that they be a minimum depth of 10 inches.
Well, and was she? Wow, I didn't know that there's so many specifications on steps.
Oh, yeah.
But was she a larger lady? Because you said she wasn't old, and I mean, I've tripped and fell on stairs. I mean, I think that a lot of people have and twist their ankles, and I know fractures. But for something of this serious, magnitude, and not being elderly, was she of larger size, and that kind of contributed to kind of these serious damages?
Well, I have absolutely no idea what her weight was, but I suspect that. But I would. It sounds a little not so woke on your part here.
I mean, it's not. I think it's a genuine.
Well, I don't know
question.
that heavy people fall more like.
No, but I think the damage, like the pains and injuries, if you do fall, are going to be a lot more severe.
Well, maybe, but I think if you twist your ankle in the right way,
Fair.
I don't think it necessarily depends on how much you weigh. So I don't know if that was a factor at all. That wasn't reported in the story or in the news. I haven't seen a photograph of her, but again, just a horrendous injury. And the jury found, and there are building codes that require, I mean, and I didn't know this actually until I became an attorney and started handling some of these cases, but they have like human factors experts, and there's all kinds of codes for, how stairs are, how steep they can be, how the depth, when you have to have a handrail and when you don't.
Wow.
Yeah. And so there was in violation of the building codes. And so I'm sure that's why they found in her favor. And then the damages were just really huge.
I'm sure. I mean, if there's already a violation of building code, I mean, that's already kind of a nail in the coffin.
Yeah, that's
there.
pretty much per se. You can always argue comparative fault and that the person somehow contributed.
Yeah.
And so, of course, what I was thinking, again, my only experience with IHOP prior to having you was I was probably drunk, and I mean, but that was not a factor in this case.
I mean, maybe they do mimosas in the morning. Shit, I could be in that same wheelchair there.
I don't think IHOP has bottomless mimosas.
Oh, if they did,
you would be a regular for sure.
Kill it. I'd kill it.
Yeah. So, but that wasn't a factor. But anything along those lines could be. And one of the arguments always in the cases too is were you paying attention, where were you looking, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that goes to I used to always have people say, I fell at Walmart. And of course, if I fall there, I can make a claim. Well, no, not necessarily. But people really do think that just because you're at a particular store, if you fall, if you get hurt, it's automatically their fault. And it's not. You have to prove negligence. You have to prove that there was a dangerous condition, that they didn't keep it safe.
Well, I always see on TV too, or like in TV shows where it's, obviously very dramatized, where, there will be water on the ground or something was spilt, and then they have to put out those yellow things, right, to let you know that you got to be careful. And someone like secretly hides it and puts it around the corner and then walks over and slips and falls. And there's sometimes I'm walking in QT and I see, oh, wow, there's a slip here, or there's water here, right? And there's no sign. I'm like, what if I just, oops, and fell? And would I have a case if there was a situation like that where there's, water on the ground? Because, I mean, I guess, does that count as negligence?
Well, it depends. So if the business itself caused the problem, like, for example, I had a case years ago where they were loading the ice chest, or the ice, those big cases where they have keep the ice inside, and there was ice melting, and they actually created that condition. So then they're responsible. But if some other customer is walking down the aisle and they knock something over or they spill something, so then the store may or may not know about it.
Oh.
So then the question is, should they have known about it? Like, how long was it there?
Yeah.
And you can argue, there were all of these tracks through it, dirty, it looked like it had been there for a while. Or if somebody notified them and say, hey, there's a spill in aisle 6,
and
they're like, we'll get to it. And then somebody falls until they get to it. So it has to be, they have to inspect on a reasonable frequency.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we used to always get in discovery was they would have sweep logs. And one of the jobs, just like, how they have like the logs in the bathroom, and, every 30 minutes or whatever it is, the employee has to clean and they sign off on it.
Yeah.
But that being said, a lot of times we would get these and people, they'd sign, 15 times when they hadn't even.
Yeah, I mean, on a day-to-day basis, right? You're there every single day, and after 5 years, there's no problems, and you do it every hour on the hour. You get a little.
You can get a little messy with that. So that would be their proof as well. We go through every 20 minutes or every half hour.
Yeah.
So clearly this happened in between. We didn't cause it. We didn't know about it. If they do know about it, then they have to warn. So that's when you would go and you would put up the signs, caution, and then clean it up as quickly as you can. So again, they have to know about the condition and not warn about it to find them at fault. Otherwise, if somebody spills something and you were right behind them and you slip and fall in it, they didn't do anything wrong. They had no control over that.
That makes sense. Yeah. Actually, the ice story kind of reminds me of a story that my buddy told me. I don't want to get too far off topic here, but he was a bar back in Old Town in Scottsdale. And, on Saturday, Friday nights, I mean, it is body to body in there, and it is blaring music. You can't hear the person next to you. Chaos is unfolding. And so, you got to fill up the ice buckets for where they make the drinks, but the ice is in the back. So the bar backs have to go all the way in the back. They get a big old barrel, fill it up with ice, and then have to go through this entire club of dancing, drunk people, blaring music, carrying it. He said he carried it on his shoulder because you can't really carry it any other way with that many people. And there's one time where he had it on his shoulder. He's walking up, and the bars, you usually swoop under it and you can't pull it up or anything like that. And he was trying to take it off his shoulder and put it down on the counter, and it fell back. And you have no leverage when you're holding it up like that. Yeah. And it fell back this was pounds, 5 to 10 pounds of ice just scattered all across the entire floor, everywhere. And he turns around, and the panic that I can only imagine, right? There are hundreds of people. Yeah, hundreds of people. Everyone's dancing, jumping up and down, drunk. So and you just see this ice everywhere. And he said there was this guy that had gotten a table, and he was standing on the table dancing. And some guy told him hey, get down from there. And he jumped off the table and landed on the ice. And it wasn't even he landed. It was just as soon as his feet touched the ice, slid right out from under him, and he slammed the back of his head on the table. And the lights turned on, and he was really injured. And the guy, he was sent home, and my buddy was sent home, and the manager told him that he was okay. But I guess after a week, the guy that had gotten injured was throwing a really big fit about it, and so they had to fire him because if there was a lawsuit or anything, they couldn't say it was to protect them essentially to say the guy that caused this.
Yeah, they're going to be on the hook. It was their employee who did this, but clearly it was an accident. It wasn't some intentional thing. I don't think they had to fire him, but that's exactly the type of situation. Once it happens, then you're going to have to do everything you can to clean it up and to warn about it. But in a nightclub like that, I'm surprised that they turned on the lights and all. But I guess once the guy,
apparently it was he slammed it.
Okay, yeah,
his head. It was bad. Yeah.
So if an employee creates the dangerous condition, again, unintentionally, it doesn't matter, but that employee, in theory, negligently created that condition, so then they would be on the hook. So that would be a pretty valid lawsuit.
And these are the type of cases that I imagine people always kind of scoff at. Almost, right? They think, oh, this guy's just trying to get a quick paycheck or something like that. Is that a reasonable kind of assumption that people have, or stigma, I guess, for these cases?
Well, I think that, any type of situation, somebody could try to abuse the system. I think it's a lot harder to do that these days. There's cameras everywhere. And so, the odds of you getting caught are pretty high. But any kind of case. People do that in car accidents too. They're not hurt. They're I'm in pain because they want to make, they want to be compensated. And that really does hurt the other people who are honestly injured as a result, of these types of situations. But there are some, over the years, I've had a bunch of these types of cases, premise cases. I've also turned down way more than I've kept. Again, people would come in and they'd be like, well, I fell there. Well, what did you fall on? Well, I don't know. Well, how you don't even know what it was, how long it was there. I have no idea. I'm
not a clumsy person. If I fell, there was something there. I don't know what it was, but there was something funky going on.
Yeah. So, but we've had cases, we had some, there were a few against car wash facilities, which again, and if you notice, if you go to the car wash, they have like very specific walkways where they tell you, walk here while you're waiting to get your car.
Yeah.
Because again, there's soap, there's water,
Yeah.
it's going to be slippery.
Unavoidable too. I mean, it's not like you can clean that up consistently. I mean, there's just soap and water everywhere. It's getting thrown around.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, we had one case with pretty serious injuries where the manager had said, oh, come here, come over this way, and had guided them into an entirely different area, right, basically through the sudsy water.
Right into a slippery area. Okay,
injuries, yeah. Lots of cases like parking lots where either there's not, it's uneven, there's not adequate lighting.
Yeah, or like potholes in the parking lot when you're walking and stuff like that.
Yeah, that need to get repaired. Or again, lighting or a warning sign if there's like a big dip or something, you can put a sign out. Painting, sometimes they'll put like the bright yellow paint, something to warn people about. There was, one of they've changed this over the years, but it used to be like in the checkout lines at the grocery stores, with all the candies and the magazines and everything. They used to have these like metal prongs that kind of stuck out of like kind of it wasn't corkboard, but they had like little holes in it, and the metal things would stick out, and then you would hang items from them. I don't know if that sounds familiar.
Yeah, I mean, I know like in aisles there'll be stuff like that, but that doesn't stick out to where you're like walking. I mean, there's like a good distance from the walk path to where it's like actually sticking.
Yeah, but so in the checkout lanes, because it's close quarters, and there was just this. I mean, it seemed like it happened a lot, but kids would get their eyes poked because it was like right at that height.
Yeah.
And so that's totally been changed. But those kinds of things, again, it shouldn't be like a sharp metal prong sticking out. They could put something, softer on it. We've talked about like amusement parks and pools. Those would be premise cases. Again, having adequate
Pools. I mean, and water parks. I mean, like everyone's running around, soaking wet, water's dripping everywhere. I mean, the likelihood of slipping and falling is pretty high there.
Well, and at the pools too, you think, I mean, and they always usually have signs about, don't run. And then so to a certain extent, that it potentially would be slippery, but depending on, what the material is, they have these, there's a certain coefficient of friction that's,
I always
has
knew
to be met. Again, one of these code things.
the sidewalks would be like super prickly and I'd be like, this is awful. They know I'm going to be walking barefoot. Why would they do this to me? This is
so not
terribly
to
uncomfortable,
slip.
but it's to not slip. Yeah.
Exactly. But with the pools, it's more like the supervision, providing lifeguards, that sort of thing, so that people aren't drowning. Dog bites. Those are oftentimes premise cases. If you're at somebody's home, the homeowners would be on the hook for that.
So premise premise essentially just means like premises, right? Like
right.
on the premises. So, but dog bite cases, a lot of the times I feel like those are when people are out walking their dogs.
True. Yeah, that can be too.
But so that wouldn't be a premise case. That would.
Yeah, not necessarily. I mean, if it's on the property, it would technically be a premises case.
Yeah.
Although the dog bite cases usually are covered under homeowners policies.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I imagine there's a lot of these cases, and a lot of them, some of them are very valid. I'm sure a lot of them are very valid. But I do think, this seems like kind of, like you said, if there's a way to manipulate it or abuse the system, there are going to be people out there that try.
There are going to be people, yeah. But I mean, you have to, there's ways to weed them out, a lot of them. And certainly attorneys are not going to take cases if they think that that's the case, because it's not going to do them any favors.
Yeah, and I mean, this IHOP case sounds so awful too. And fractures I always think are so interesting because it's not a broken bone. It's like the bone actually being fractured, right? But it sounds like in this one, like it is worse than a broken ankle. These injuries are so long lasting, going to be on the cane for the rest of her life, and that's a pretty big payout as well. $8 million, I think you said.
Well, apparently she's disabled. She can't work, and a relatively young woman. And again, when you're breaking a joint as opposed to just a femur or something like that. That has to move all the time. It's more problematic.
Already, like you said, it was against the city building regulations for the stairs.
Well, there were violated those.
Violated,
yeah. And that was, and IHOP should have corrected that, and I'm sure they will correct it now.
Well, I guess they'll be needing all the help they can get. I guess I might do a weekend trip, see if they might have revised their menu, add some bottomless in there.
Yeah. So, well, another case that was in the news, and this is a more unique premises case, and also kind of goes to one of your favorites, which is fast food restaurants. Although I don't know that Jack in the Box is high for you. High end
No, it's pretty low. It's pretty low. Although I do have a lot of friends that swear by it. They got the munch box or whatever, the munchie box, I think, for like late night munchies. And you know, a lot of my smoker friends, they think I swear by it. It's a fantastic deal, 5 for $5, something like that. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. I think the quality's a little low. They do have fantastic curly fries. Actually,
this whole thing revolves around curly fries.
There you go. They're just that good. They are that good.
Well, they're so good. So this case involved in Texas, you know, the wild and woolly Texas, of course, where our friend Fernando resides. So this happened in Houston, and this couple, we were going through the drive-thru at a Jack in the Box. The husband had just picked up the wife and his daughter at the airport, hungry, want to go through. They order a combo meal. Mm-hmm. And then a disagreement ensues. Yeah. So they say, wait a minute, we did not get our curly fries. And so a huge argument.
I would start an argument over that.
Well, it was a pretty big argument, and the employee then whips out a gun and starts shooting at the family.
Jesus Christ.
Right?
I mean, the fact that the employee is strapped up at work is impressive, that alone.
I mean, maybe in Houston near the airport, this is a necessary thing. I don't know.
I don't. To be fair, I don't really blame them. Jack in the Box isn't the most upscale establishment, and they are 24 hours. So I'm sure you get some sus individuals coming there late at night.
But here's the other thing: this idiot employee. There's a video. You can actually go online. You can Google it, and there's a video showing her shooting at the people out there.
So does she just pull it out at the drive-thru? Sure.
Yeah, and starts shooting out the window.
Oh my God. You want curly fries? Well, take this. Ba, 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 ba.
Pretty much. And I don't know if he ever even got the curly fries.
Oh,
but they had to zoom off, and I guess she was arrested, of course.
It's a she too. Wow.
Yeah, it's a she. I can't pronounce. Her name is Alania Fantasia Ford.
So, what do the injuries look like here? All right, did anyone die? I mean, it's a full family in there, and at that close range, I would imagine someone was hit. It had to be pretty bad.
Actually, luckily not. As soon as she started firing, they took off. But actually, the wife was pregnant too. So it was a 6-year-old daughter, the husband and wife, and the pregnant wife. So it's like a miracle. I mean, this could have been so much worse. But of course, she was arrested. I guess she took some plea and was. I think by the time this case was filed, she was already released.
Released? I mean, it doesn't. Isn't that attempted murder or like assault with a deadly weapon? I mean, you're shooting at a car full of a family, along with a pregnant woman, close range. The odds of you hitting and killing someone are incredibly high. How do you just get off with that? It's like
one. She's a shitty shot too.
Yeah.
I mean, what the hell? She couldn't
well, that's why she's working at Jack in the Box, huh?
Yeah, I know she was charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and then pled guilty to a lesser charge of deadly conduct.
Deadly how? That's so insane to me.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. She's out again. I'm presumably not working at Jack in the Box. So they sued Jack in the Box for, for one thing, letting employees have a gun at work. I mean, what the hell?
Yeah, that's insane to me. I get anxious. I mean, when I worked at P.F. Chang's way back in the day, I would get anxious having my phone in my pocket. I thought I was going to get yelled at, let alone strapped up with a gun.
Yeah, it's not. Well, and initially they denied fault and said that they were not legally responsible for third parties like this woman,
like their employee that they hired and are paying
and did screen and has it. Yeah. So, but this is going forward. It says her sentence was 1 year deferred adjudication, which she completed in June. I mean, it's just nuts. So I think the bigger issue here, quite frankly, is the whole criminal end of things. If you ask me, I'm really troubled by this. That you can have a job at Jack in the Box, start shooting at customers over curly fries. Yeah. I mean, it's not like there was some
we might see her at McDonald's next week. She might just go to a new establishment.
She's probably putting those hot fries out, extra boiling hot, intentionally to try to
exactly
burn people.
She's the one making those McNuggets and those.
And those fries that
Yep.
are burning the crap out of people. Yeah. So again, that's a premises case, potentially against Jack in the Box for the behavior of the employees. And a lot of these cases do involve, actions of the employees
Yeah.
or negligence of the employees, like your ice guy, of course.
Well, and then I always, not always, but I have seen videos of, not only just fast food workers, but Walmart workers, just everyone, especially in these businesses where they don't get treated very well. They're just people are being very rude to them, and then they're having a bad day, and then a fight breaks out, and between the customer as well as the employee, and I would assume that also counts as a premises case because you're representing the business, the company as an employee.
Right. Yeah. So it's an employee in the course and scope of their employment who has done this, then they're going to be on the hook.
Yeah. So that is playing out. It went to court, and Jack in the Box said that they're not responsible for third parties, but it seems like the court is taking the side of the family here and saying, well, you are paying them to be on your grounds. They are an employee by you, and you allowed them to have a gun in your business. So it is going to kind of continue.
Yeah. So I think they're going to end up having to pay on that. But speaking of the whole employees and weapons, a lot of these cases that you'll see will be against bars, nightclubs.
Oh, yeah.
Where people get, maybe two customers get into fights, but then there are cases where these bouncers have weapons that they should not have again, and then if somebody gets shot, that's potentially on the part of the club owner. And then like the mass shooting cases, again, a lot of times those cases are against the bar, saying that you had inadequate security, you didn't screen people coming in, and your negligence is what allowed this situation to occur. So that also would be again a premise type.
Yeah,
of case.
that's interesting. I didn't even think about that because when I go to a mill, and I haven't gone to a mill in a while, and things have changed a lot, but there's some bars on mill that when you go in, they make you lift up your shirt so they can see your waistline. Which I always thought was like, geez, where am I coming? Where am I going? This is a ASU college party town here. I don't think I'm in the depths of Texas at a dive bar or something, but it does make sense at a lot of these larger establishments, especially with the shootings that you mentioned that have been going on in recent times, for there to be a little bit more being more cautious about it.
Well, and if you think about it, like concerts, and they have all this clear bag policy now.
Yeah.
Although I was never sure if that was weapons or alcohol that they were trying to.
Or drugs. I always thought it was drugs.
Yeah.
But and they make you go through. They look at your purse when you go inside, even if you don't have a clear bag. You got to look in it.
Right.
But a lot of time, I think it is more for guns because when I see people look into the purses, it's not like they're going through small pockets, right? They're just opening up, looking in.
And even it's usually a clear bag, but then there's like a size like 5x7 that's allowable. So that size, you could cram some drugs in there, but you're not going to cram a decent sized weapon in there.
Yeah.
But I always thought, and I actually have a really nice clear bag now because I used to have just like this crappy clear bag. Because usually it was like going to like a football game or something along those lines. And then it's been a couple of years now, but I was going to the opera and they said next time, we're instituting this clear bag policy. I'm like, oh my God, how many shooters go to like
a high risk spot?
Opera.
Yeah.
So I had to get like a really nice, stylish bag that is clear for
a lot of vigilantes out at operas. And you got to be fashionable with it too. If they're gonna make you have a clear bag, you're gonna look good having one.
Well, that's my policy. Absolutely, absolutely.
They have their policies. We got ours.
But it's like, and I'm like the youngest person in line there. These people are like 70s and 80s, and I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah. Well, and then at the end of the day, I guess it is for the greater good, right? Making sure everyone's safe and that none of these terrible events happen.
Well, and like the big concerts and things like that, I get that.
Those are definitely a little more reasonable, and I think especially with a lot of the, like you said, music concerts or like festivals and whatnot, where people are camping out. There's hundreds, thousands of people there for days and days, hungover, drunk, out of it. No one's being super aware or anything like that.
Yeah. And you can't prevent everything, but you have to take reasonable measures to ensure that the people who are attending your event are going to be safe.
And so that's what the law is really about, right? Is taking reasonable measures.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's always, was that reasonable under the circumstances? Yeah. And then there's guidance like with building codes or state laws, that may be really specific. specific, but what is what they're doing reasonable or not? Could they have prevented this? Would it have been reasonable for them to have done so?
Yeah. I mean, this Jack in the Box case seems pretty.
Isn't that nuts? I guess I never thought I would risk my life for curly fries.
I guess you haven't had Jack in the Box curly fries quite yet then.
I haven't in a long time. I'm telling you, all of these things, I don't, I mean, my fast food time was basically when you were younger.
Yeah.
So it's probably okay. I mean, if we're traveling every once in a while, and Peter now, he likes to listen to what you like. So he did try Chipotle recently.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because you talk about that all the time. So he finally got that.
What do you think?
He liked it.
Did he get a burrito? Or a burrito bowl. Oh, he did text me. He texted me. He said, hey, I'm going to Chipotle today. What should I get?
Oh, okay.
And I think I missed the text or something. I was like, barbacoa is great. And he's like, yeah, I got the barbacoa salad bowl. And he was like, how was it? And he's like, oh, it's good.
Oh, good. Okay. I didn't think he told me, but at least he shared that with you. But yeah, we'll stop every once in a while at Chick-fil-A or In-N-Out.
Oh, yeah.
But then again, we've tried to stop at In-N-Out, and the line's so long, we're not patient.
It goes fast. It goes really fast.
Not fast enough for Peter if we're on the road.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, it definitely looks pretty overwhelming at times, but that's why I like them, is because even when it is long, they're quick about it compared to like McDonald's. Those will take.
They got to get those fries extra hot.
They got to get the fries extra hot. There's a high demand for it. They're cooking them up. They're sending them out as soon as they're done.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's an interesting one. What other interesting cases have been going on? Any more fast food ones?
Well, yeah, there's another McDonald's, another hot coffee spill.
Oh, another one. Well, this is going to get people up in arms already, I can tell.
I know. Well, it's so strange, too, because, I mean, there was so much drama about what the Stella Liebig case, and then it seems like it's been a really long time. And now, there's the nuggets, there's the French fries, and now we've got another hot coffee. This one, though, it was in San Francisco. And it's an 85-year-old woman, and she was given the hot coffee, but the issue was that the employee did not get the lid on, so the lid came off and it spilled all over her. So, I mean, again, arguable. You need to make sure you get that lid on, because it's a hot, it's a hot beverage. We know it's hot. We know that it can burn you.
And they fill it up to the brim. I mean, they're trying to
get your money's worth.
Exactly.
Yeah. So again, very serious burns, but that's back in the news. And, like I said, kind of following on the heels of the nugget and the French fries, McDonald's is fighting them off, whack-a-mole.
Yeah, I mean, that's back to back. That's another one. And I think especially when it comes to elderly women, elderly men, whatever it is, their skin's really sensitive, right? I mean,
really? Or is my skin more sensitive? Well, I don't know.
I don't know. I always imagine like
maybe more delicate.
More delicate, more
fragile.
Delicate, right? Because I'm pretty sure this is a thing, right? Like I hear they get cuts very easily, or like rashes, and they just have very delicate skin. And with hot coffee, I mean, I could imagine that would be awful. And that case seems a little bit more straightforward, where it is kind of the employee's negligence there, not putting on the lid carefully enough on a hot beverage.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had that happen. I mean, the drive-through I go to is Starbucks, and I'm back to doing that again.
Oh, me too.
I was off for a while, but man, I'm telling you, their oat milk lattes, it's
fantastic. I love oat milk. I was against it at first. I was just terrified. Okay, I was
terrified. This is a little dramatic.
Oat milk, almond milk, all of those things just had a terrible connotation in my head. Icky, healthy, gross. But then I tried it finally. Oat milk vanilla latte, iced, fantastic. I like it better than normal milk now.
Yeah, well, I definitely do, and it's kinder to my stomach. So,
but I have had that where someone will hand me a cup and the lid is on, but they're kind of flimsy cups. They're paper, they're plastic, and when you squeeze it, sometimes you squeeze it and it just pops the lid off. But it's always with like soda. If it was something hot, it would kind of that would scare me a little bit more.
Well, I think the hot ones are a little bit thicker but every single time they say, "Do you want the spill guard?"
Oh, at Starbucks.
Yeah,
but that's for the mouthpiece. That's not going to stop anything from if the lid comes off.
True. But I mean, it's still extra super duper protection.
Yeah, they're doing their
due diligence there, aren't they? Yeah,
exactly.
They're very safe. Haven't had any issues with Starbucks. And like I said, I give them plenty of options pretty much every day. They have a chance to burn the crap out of me, and they haven't done it yet.
They got a lot of opportunities to do
A
you
lot
wrong,
of opportunities.
and they haven't quite yet. Well, they're doing better than McDonald's. That's interesting. There's another one in there. They're beginning it back to back. I'm wondering if there's going to be some type of widespread kind of change in their day to day or their expectations among employees. Because I mean, I think this is 3 in the last like 2 to 3 months. We're almost at a 1 a month period here.
Yeah, actually, I should say yes. We do have updates. We have the McDonald's update.
Yeah.
We can pretty much do that every week.
And people always love hearing about it too. It's
I love hearing about it. They get just so worked up and angry, and lots and lots of comments on those.
Everyone has their opinions, and we welcome all opinions, good,
Oh, yeah.
bad, positive, negative, whatever it is. We welcome it. That's interesting. A lot of fast food cases there. Is there anything outside of fast food going
Not fast
on?
food. Yeah. This one was really interesting. I mean, just a totally, I would not have imagined this lawsuit, but I guess it is a possibility. We'll see how this goes. It is a lawsuit against Google Maps. And what happened is a man was driving. It was dark. It was rainy. And he used Google Maps to get his directions home, and it told him to go over this bridge. Well, the bridge had collapsed, and he drove off of it and went into this creek and drowned and died. And this happened in 2022. The bridge had collapsed in 2013.
Oh my god. Okay. All right. Well,
Are you liking this?
yeah. This changed it. If it was like the day of or the week before,
No.
that would be a little more. This is almost 10 years after the bridge has collapsed, and Google Maps still has people directing people over it.
And not only that, but there had been, I guess there is an option where you can respond to Google Maps and tell them that there's a problem and that they need to reroute.
Oh yeah, they also do that with cops and speed meters, where you can report them and it will tell other people that go through that area.
Yeah, and so I guess there had been multiple complaints. I'm trying to suggest and edit. So they have a suggest and edit feature, and people had suggested that and made notes. Let's see, multiple people in the neighborhood had told them, this bridge is down. It's not a valid route. You need to reroute people, and they had not done it. So,
well, I mean, and they are pretty fast about it. I mean, I know with car crashes, for example, right? They are in the moment as soon as a car crash happens or soon after, and when it's cleaned up, that you can tell on the maps. And I don't know if this is funny, but there is a Office episode that is almost like oddly familiar to this,
Really?
where Michael's driving to some sales meeting or something like that, and the whole episode's about anti-technology and technology kind of taking their jobs, whatever it may be. And he's listening to a maps program, and it tells him to take a right, and he takes a right, and he's slowly going, and it clearly goes. It's like a boat ramp where people back up and let their boats off, so it just goes into a lake. And
No
Dwight's
way.
with him, and he's like, "You're not supposed to go." He's like, "She's telling me to go," and he just keeps slowly going, driving into the lake, and Dwight's yelling at him, and he's like, "Well, it's telling me to go," and he literally drives his entire rental car into the lake, and then at the end of the episode, he's like, "Well, this is where technology gets you. You flood your car and ruin it."
Wow. Yeah, I haven't seen that, but and I guess it feels like it's kind of overwhelming that how can they possibly be up to date on every possible route, every damaged road.
That's their job, though.
Well, right, and I guess so that's the other side of it too, because yes, it is, and I mean all of these computer programs and how many thousands and hundreds of thousands of people do they have working, and then I always see like those little vans driving around that are doing like the GPS.
Well, and then they almost push you to do it too, because like, for example, whenever I leave here, it knows that my phone knows at certain times when I get in the car, it'll recommend me, oh, here's how long until your destination. It'll tell me, 2 hours to Phoenix as soon as I get in my car at the same time every week. So it almost pushes you to use that app whenever you can to get anywhere you need to go.
Yeah. Well, I even, and this makes Peter a little bit crazy when we're traveling, but even if we know exactly where we're going, I'll still put the directions in because it'll tell you.
That'll drive me crazy.
It does. Well, but here's the thing. Here's the good thing. It'll tell you, it'll reroute you if there's an accident. It'll tell you if there's a speed trap. It'll warn you about these things. And I think when we were coming back from Flagstaff, we were warned ahead of time about this big traffic. I think it was an accident. I didn't even know what was going on. But I mean, it was a big holdup. So it is handy to have for
I wonder if, I mean, when this guy was going over the bridge, it would be shocking to me if it was, if it had collapsed and there was no signs, there was no, blockage, because, right, there has to be some type of blockage, whether it's cones or something, to stop him and tell him no. But he was just looking at the map, continue driving. He sees all these cones. He's like, well, they said, said it's good to go.
Well, and this is a little bit unique because it was not in a city maintained road. It was in private property, like in a development.
Yeah.
So there weren't any warning signs up, and it was dark and it was raining. It was like 11 p.m. and he's trying to get home. So it seems like a lot of things kind of came together to make this like the worst case situation. That it's interesting to think that Google Maps may be responsible. What is the standard here? We'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, and I mean this case happened a while ago, right? It was 2020, 2021.
2022.
2022. Okay, so not that long ago. Are there developments going on now? Because I mean this bridge has been collapsed since 2013. The crash happened 2022. And it sounds like things are playing out a little bit more now where they're, obviously suing Google and Google Maps. How's it looking? Has Google given a response on it yet?
No. So the reason it's in the news was that the case it was just filed on Tuesday, but the accident happened back in 2022. So of course, before the lawsuit gets filed, there's lots of investigation and probably attempts to resolve the case and maybe settle it. So the lawsuit was just filed, and that was newsworthy. And it is. I mean, that's not something I would necessarily have thought of. But again, I haven't had a situation like that. I mean, if you had somebody come in and say, "Hey, he was following these, and here's what happened,"
And I mean that just adds a ton of responsibility on Google too, where they're directing so many people and they have so many routes. I mean, it's insane. It's insane how many things you can look up on Google Maps and get to. Sometimes you'll be driving out in the middle of the desert and you're like, how the hell do they know of this dirt road out in the middle of nowhere? No clue. But now with this case, it's the idea of wherever they direct you, whatever path you take, they are kind of held responsible on the hook if that's not what's there, if that's not the case, if that's not the right path, if something happens and you don't need to be on that road, whatever it may be.
Well, and they may not be held responsible.
Yeah.
And it may be one of these things, again, where did they have reason to know? And the argument here is that they did have reason to know that multiple people who lived in the area had submitted these comments that this is, the bridge is down and, reroute. And so within a period of time where they could have changed, they could have changed the route.
I mean, it seems like it because, I mean, shit, you report a speed cop on the highway and within 5 minutes is going to be on there reminding everyone behind you that it's there. This bridge collapsed in 2013, crash happened in 2022. I'm pretty confident there was some neighbors that reported it.
Something in their algorithm to switch that out. Well, and there was evidence that the neighbors had, that individuals in that area had reported it, definitely.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be, it's going to be interesting how this plays out with such a large corporation like Google. I mean, they are a powerhouse and everywhere, right? They got their toe dipped in just about every pool of commodities and products across the board. So it's gonna be interesting seeing how that they deal with it, and if there is going to be a payout, or if there's gonna how it's gonna look in court.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's going to be something along the lines of, now to use it, you're agreeing that you'll, look at
sign your life away.
There's going to be some waivers and warnings that
terms and usage.
Exactly. So we'll see about that. But anyway, interesting, and just got filed, so we'll see what happens with that.
We are kind of coming a little bit to a close here. Do you want to go through any more interesting cases, or is there any other topics that you want to spend a little bit more time on or touch on?
Well, I think, we didn't get to questions and comments last time, so I thought maybe we could spend a little bit of time on that, because there's a couple of things that have been super active on our social media. One of which is the issue of the 3M that we've been talking about, and people getting super frustrated. We've had just call after call after call, and they're saying, "Why can't I participate? Why didn't I know about this?" And Danny was just saying that a few people were saying, "Well, yeah, I did. I saw the commercials, but I didn't know if that was a scam. I didn't know. It seemed kind of off. I didn't know." How was I supposed to know if that was accurate or not? And I think, there is a lot of lawyer advertising. Some people love it. Well, lots of people hate it. And, it can be annoying. I get that. But that being said, in these types of cases, oftentimes that's the only way that people find out about a particular problem.
Yeah.
With the drugs and devices, with a car accident, if somebody's in a car accident, almost everybody knows that they can file a complaint, they can get compensated for their injuries, they can find an attorney. But with these drugs, if you don't see a commercial, you may not know that this medication you're taking is a problem. Maybe it was in the news, maybe it was very briefly in the news, maybe it wasn't even in the news. And so to that extent, the advertising really does get that information out to potential claimants. Some of them are a little more hokey. Some people might say offensive than others, but if you see an ad and it's talking about a particular medication that you've taken or a product that you've used, like with these earplugs, you can do your own research, your due diligence with respect to like a particular attorney. Well, first of all, you can just Google and find out if it's a real problem. If it's a real problem, and then you can always find a competent, good attorney. One of the options is contacting your state bar. And if you see an advertisement by an attorney, you can go online and search for that attorney and ensure that, yes, that is an attorney licensed in that state. That is their area of practice. So you can see if there's complaints against them.
So if you look up an attorney's name, all that stuff's going to pop up. I mean, if they are a licensed attorney, it's a real deal. If you put in their name, something's going to come up, right? Yeah.
Now, and different state bars may provide different information, but generally speaking, I can tell you in Arizona, I mean, yes, you're going to find out, their address, that they are licensed, how long they've been licensed. They'll have their listed areas of practice, and you can find out if there's complaints against them. So you can check that out if you're looking at a particular attorney's ad. And of course you can. Well, actually, with the State Bar of Arizona, you can put in a particular problem, and there's a whole section that's find a lawyer that it can help you find somebody who does practice in that area. So there's things that you can do. I understand though, because I mean we do get crazy call. There are crazy situations out there, and you got to watch out for scams and giving information. I mean, anybody,
especially current day. I mean, I can't go on my email a single day without seeing 5 to 10 different scam emails coming out. And it's better safe than sorry in general when it comes to this type of stuff. Is you don't want to put your information into an unfamiliar place, and you don't want to kind of put yourself at risk for this type of stuff. But at the same time, these cases they're big news in the way that if you look it up, you're going to be able to find resources no matter what. But they're not big enough news to where you're not going to go turn on Channel 4 every night and see an update on 3M earplugs. Unless somehow Shard Law Firm gets onto Channel 4, you won't be seeing these updates. And it's also something where, it might be a little bit scary, or I guess, add hesitation if you see a bunch of law firms advertising for it and you don't know who's the real deal and who's not. But also keep in mind too is that these companies that are being sued that have these problems, they don't want it to be known. They don't want this word to be out and everyone to be finding out about it. And they're not going to come out there and say, hey, guys, we messed up. Let us pay you a few thousand, tens of thousands of dollars for our mess up. The only people that are going to be doing that is the attorneys. And I think we talked about kind of the benefits of attorney advertising in one of our previous episodes of just getting the word out to know, so people know, how they've been done wrong and how they can collect and claim on that damages and on those injuries, whatever they may be. But yeah, I mean, like, doing your own research, just looking it up, because it's if it is a scam, then it's going to be really hard, if not impossible, to find resources on it. But for example, these 3Ms, I'm sure in the last year, if you looked up 3M earplugs, one of the first links are going to be talking about the injuries and the issues and the lawsuits coming out about it. And once you know that it's a real problem, then you can look up for, a local attorney that you may be familiar with, you saw on TV, or look up Showard Law Firm, because we're probably handling it. And if we're not, we can send you to the right place.
Pretty much. Yeah. So that's just, again, it's very frustrating. We certainly understand that.
It's hard. I mean, the only way to really know for sure if something's not a scam is going to the BARB website. But I think that can be really overwhelming and kind of scary, I guess, for some people that just aren't familiar with law and with injuries and all this type of stuff. So I think, like you said, that's kind of the best place to do it, because you'll be able to see if there are cases there, and if there is, you kind of get a Find My Lawyer, set up there if you want. But other than that, it almost is a little bit of personal responsibility of putting that a little extra time in to make sure it is a real problem and that there are attorneys handling it. Because I know, for me, if I type in attorneys on Google Maps, speaking of Google Maps, you're going to get a lot of law firms around the area. And I'm sure, any personal injury attorney that you talk to, they're going to be in touch with what's going on, what cases are ongoing, and you can just ask them and see what's going on.
Yeah. Well, and you can speak with different attorneys and interview attorneys once you confirm that it is a viable case out there. And these big cases, they're federal lawsuits. You will be able to find them online. You will see. You can probably get some updates on there and get connected with somebody to help you.
And these ones specifically too. I mean, obviously not car crashes, but like mass tort, personal injury type cases aren't cases that need to be handled by in-state attorneys. We've gone over this a bunch of times, right? Like anyone in the country can be handling this, and this is why it's beneficial for there to be attorneys, because and for this rule to exist is because there's so many victims across the entire country, and they're all, filing their cases from different states with different requirements and different restrictions and everything ongoing, and so putting them all into this same group is beneficial for both parties.
Absolutely, much more efficient.
Yeah, so that's why you can really reach out to anyone, especially
us. Yeah. So that was a big issue. The other thing that's really kind of been blowing up on social media is back to the kratom.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because there's a lot of people who are really pissed off and feel like we're saying, that nobody should be doing this, and it's been if it's helped me so much, and I take it every day, and blah blah blah, and good on you if you want to do that, that's your decision. Yeah. But with anything, you want to know what the risks are, and then you can make a decision whether or not you want to accept the risks. Mm-hmm. So what we're trying to do here is just let people know that there are potential risks, and one of the really big risks with this product is that since it's not regulated, you might buy the exact same brand every single week for years and years and years, but that doesn't mean that the potency is going to be exactly the same. And so you could conceivably take too much. Again, it's up to you. It's not illegal. If you want to take the risk, take the risk. Just understand that there are potential risks with it. And the fact that one person has taken it for multiple years and hasn't had a problem does not mean that other people haven't died as a result. And in fact, we've had a couple of people reach out and some real arguments on the page too, with people saying this is the greatest thing ever, and the person saying this, it killed my relative, and an argument back and forth. And the reality is that both are accurate. Yeah. It may be helping one person, but it is addictive. And there were, I think there were some comments about, well, chocolate's addictive too, and chocolate can kill you if you eat too much of it. And I don't know if that's accurate or not. I mean, I might be willing to test that. Test that theory. That might be a risk I'm willing to take. But again, it's important for people to understand that, you might think this is just like some drug that is well regulated, and that that if you take the same thing, that it's always going to have the same effects on you. Mm-hmm. But that's not the situation here. And again, we're not giving any opinions really one way or the other about whether you should take it. What we're telling you is, what some of the problems are that have occurred.
Yeah.
But again, some people do say it's a wonderful thing, particularly if they're trying to detox off of opioids.
Yeah.
So, talk to your doctor, use at your own risk.
Well, it's interesting. It kind of reminds me of almost like the cigarette argument where it's like, oh, well, I've smoked for 50 years and I haven't had a single issue. And, how can this cause these problems? Which, like you said, some people everyone's different and every case is completely unique. Some people can be having issues and some people cannot have any issues at all. And whether or not it's beneficial for you or if it isn't, that isn't for us to say. It really comes down to like the regulation of it. And I think that is a really important note to make is that with other products, for example, if you go to the grocery store and you buy, chicken breast, it's chicken breast. It's going to be chicken. That's just the way it is. It's regulated. There's ways to make sure of it compared to products like this, where if you buy Kratom, especially with how many different brands there are and how little oversight it is, you don't know the dosages. You don't know if it has what it says it has in there. There's no oversight there. And so whether or not it's right or wrong isn't necessarily for us to say. It's just to be cautious that there isn't anyone overlooking this and saying this is what it is and this is the amount that's in it for sure 100%, because it can change and no one would know better except for the organization or the business itself.
Right. And I mean, there have been cases, as we talked about in the earlier episode, where people have died and they have not had other drugs or anything else in their system, that it was definitely that active ingredient, toxicity. And so, some people have had really bad outcomes, and we're not going to argue about that. I mean, I guess we are going to argue. Well, I'm not going to argue about that. You guys can argue about it on the page if you want to. But we're just reporting the news and a bit of a warning, just,
keep an eye out and be cautious.
Understand what you're doing. Understand that there's risks. And again, yes, everything has risks. Driving has risks. Walking down the street has risks. We get that. But we all get to decide what risks we want to take. And it's better that we understand what those risks are so that we can make an educated, informed decision about whether or not we want to do that. And if we know the risk and we take it and something bad happens, okay.
I also think it's funny, like the argument, chocolate is addictive and can kill you if you have too much of it. I think it's a silly argument because, like, yes, of course, there's a lot of addictive substances in our current day culture, and if you have anything too much, if you drink too much water, you could die from it as well. Definitely. That doesn't mean that everything under the sun, just if it's addictive, it's okay because everything's addictive. No, there's levels to everything. And obviously there's ways to, have healthy amounts of certain things and kind of be cautious of it and be aware of it without going to these absolute extremes of, everything's addictive, so everything should be legal. And then vice versa on the other side is like nothing can be addictive or everything's addictive. Don't do anything. There's some gray, there's some middle area here.
Yeah, well, that's what social media is for, the extremes, and boy, do we get them.
One comment that I did see that I was curious about is because we talked about how it acts on the opiate receptors, but a lot of people were saying it isn't an opiate. And so is that kind of the case there where it isn't an opiate, but it does still kind of affect the same receptors?
Yeah, I mean, it acts as an opiate, yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I know, there are a lot of drugs out there, for example, like antidepressants, where they will act on your serotonin receptors and whatnot, but they're very different than, for example, painkillers, which also act on your serotonin receptors and vice versa, because there's, different substances out there, but they can act on the same aspects of your body and of your mind.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting, too, because a lot of these, like with the SSRIs and all, I mean, they don't really even know how it works, why it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot unknown when it comes to how our brains work.
Well, and all of those, they've even with studies being done, with being studies, a lot of oversight and a lot of money going into it. With Kratom, there doesn't seem to have been as many studies. I know there was someone that linked about 16 different studies on our Facebook page as well as our YouTube page, and I'm pretty sure they looked up for any other social media we have to throw them on there. But even if they're being studies, it's just not as researched as some
and
of these other
who
things.
did the studies, who financed the studies,
yeah.
too. So.
Oh, I did look up, too, because I know last time I said marijuana was a Schedule 1 drug and you were surprised by it, that's 100% true. It is Schedule 1. It is still federally illegal, and it is still in the highest illegal status of narcotics, of drugs. But, like I said in that episode, it goes back to the dare days of them targeting specific demographics and specific groups of people with these laws and restrictions.
Mm-hmm. Well, and now certain states are, ours included,
legalized.
Yeah.
I know, and it's all, and then all of this kind of comes together in this same, philosophical arguments of substances and addiction and it helping some people, but not helping others or hurting even in some situations other people. But that's just the thing. Every case is unique, and it's hard to say what's right and what's wrong, and that's definitely not what we're doing here. We're just trying to put in information and put in facts for you guys.
Well, it's interesting they're talking about the marijuana, and I know I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here, so I will make it quick. But once it was legalized, now it is regulated.
Yeah.
And so now you can rely more on getting a consistent product, a consistent potency, whereas if you're buying it illegally, who knows? Again, you bought it from the same guy on the same street corner, this time, and it affected you differently than it did last week. And that's a little bit similar with kratom. It's not illegal, but again, it's not regulated. So we don't know the potency, and there's not that kind of safety measure. And one of the things when things are heavily regulated, like now marijuana is, it does provide a certain amount of protection that wasn't there before.
Yeah, and on that same kind of note, there was a massive issue before marijuana was legalized, and kind of in that process is where these dab pens, these carts, they were causing terrible problems, and they're killing some people even because it's essentially liquid. I don't know the specific terminology of it, but they're pens and they have liquid in them, and you hit them like a vape pen essentially. But when they were coming off the streets, a lot of people were just putting random stuff in it. Because it's like a very sticky, oilish type of thing, and so they were cutting it with different substances, and so people were having serious health issues. I think even some people died. But that doesn't mean that carts or that specific type of way of smoking is bad. It's just with that regulation came the lack of fear of that happening.
Well, it came with certain protections
safety,
that you did. Yeah. It wasn't going to be cut with some deadly stuff.
Exactly.
Whatever.
Exactly.
Interesting topic. We could probably go on for a long time, but we won't, and God knows that would really get people all riled up.
No. Well,
I like riled up.
we are at the end here. Is there any kind of closing out statements, any closing out topics you want to touch on?
I don't think so. Hopefully we'll have some more updates next week. Some things happening in the cases. Yeah,
a little dry in updates this week, but that's okay because we covered all the bases with interesting cases in the news. Going over premises liability. We had a lot of the just interesting cases in the news. A lot of fast food going on. It's
a big topic. We could have a whole show just on fast food. Maybe.
Big topic, along with the Google drama, and I'm sure we'll be getting some updates down the road there. But I think that is it for us at Prioritizing Profits. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and hanging out with us for another week, another show. I had a fantastic time. It was good vibes, good topics. Hope everyone enjoyed it as well. And tune in on next week. Same time, same day, Wednesday. I don't know what time Fernie usually puts it out on.
Wednesday morning.
And if you want to follow us on all of our social medias, that would be greatly appreciated. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, we got it all, YouTube. And throw in a comment, throw in a question. If you have any questions, any concerns, please let us know. If you have a personal story that you want to share, you want us to cover, go ahead and throw it down in the comments as well. And if it's something a little too personal, you don't want to throw it out on social media quite yet, but you have some questions on it, you can always email us, podcast@showeredlaw.com, and we will touch on it if you'd like us to, or if you're just looking for some feedback or some questions answered, you can also give us a call. We got Danny at the front desk. She's been absolutely killing it, and she's a great time to talk to. If you got any questions, definitely give us a call. But that being said, I hope you all have a fantastic week, and we'll see you next time.
See you next week.
Prioritizing profits. Prioritizing
dangerous drug and product cases.